I want to talk to you guys today about something that, if I'm honest, is one of my biggest struggles in life. And it's not some big outward thing. I'm not running through the street stealing things or stabbing people. It's actually something inside. And what I'm talking about is shame. Shame is the belief that you are somehow lesser than, that there's something wrong about you that doesn't measure up. It's that mix of fear, anxiety, and embarrassment that sits in your chest and floods your brain, telling you that you're not good enough. I want to talk about shame today, but I want to do that. I want to actually tell you a story. And it's a story that takes all the inside mind and heart stuff and brings it outside into a person's experience. It's a story from the life of Jesus. And I think that by looking at this story, we can understand a bit both of how to look past our feelings of shame, and look past the lies that maybe feed those things, but maybe even how to be freed from it. So let's dive in. It says, early in the morning, it's Jesus, came again to the temple. And all the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought in a woman who had been caught in adultery. And placing her in the midst, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say?" So Jesus is just sitting in the temple teaching people. And the Pharisees, this group of super religious guys obsessed with making sure they're following the rules and everyone else is following the rules. They bring this woman into the temple and they throw her in front of Jesus. Now we're told that they caught her in the act of adultery. Now, without going into detail, that means she was caught with someone she's not married to doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. And in this time and culture, that wasn't just looked down upon and talked about behind people's backs. If the right person found out, it was dangerous, even deadly. And so they caught her in the act, grabbed her, and dragged her into the temple. And they probably didn't even let her put clothes on first. Have you ever felt exposed? Like everyone is looking at you and you don't want them to be. Or maybe not exposed, maybe just afraid that if people did know the real you, the things you think about the things you do when no one's looking, the things you know about yourself that nobody else knows. If they only knew, you'd be crushed, rejected, embarrassed, ashamed. I think a lot of us carry around this sense of shame. This idea that something is wrong with us, that we're not good enough, that we aren't safe to be truly and fully known. And maybe you can relate to that. I know I can. And for the woman in this story, that sense has become a reality for her. These men have dragged her secret stuff into the limelight. And of course they don't say anything about the guy she was with. And of course they don't mind their own business. Instead, they drag her into the temple, throw her in front of everyone, and accuse her. And they point out that their religious law has harsh penalties for what she's done. And then they ask Jesus what he thinks should happen to her. And here's the thing. I think a lot of people struggle with feelings of guilt and shame in general, but even more so, and I think this is true whether you grew up in the church or if you've never opened a Bible before. For a lot of us, the last person we would want to be exposed in front of is Jesus. We think that if we were thrown in front of Jesus, he would be the first one to wag the finger, judge, and condemn us. I just want to invite you for a moment to take off the assumptions. Take off what you think Jesus is like for a moment. And let's just look at how he responds to a shame-filled, exposed person who's at their lowest point. So they throw this woman in front of Jesus, tell him she should be stoned to death, and ask him what they should do. And the story goes on. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more." So they're asking Jesus to condemn this woman, this person whose secret sins have been laid bare in front of everyone. And what's the first thing Jesus does? He ignores them. He bends down in the dirt and writes in it. And they keep egging him on and asking him about it until he stands up, looks around, and says to them, "Let the person who is without sin cast the first stone." Then he bends back down and keeps writing in the dirt. And let's just start there. These guys are hell-bent on accusing and shaming this woman, and Jesus won't even engage with them. He takes the power away from them, takes the attention off the woman, and brings it all into his terms. And when he finally does speak up, he isn't talking about her issues. He's talking about their hypocrisy. He says, "Let the one who is without sin throw the first stone." Let the person who has never made a mistake, who has nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of, let that person throw the first stone, if you're so set on punishing her. He bends back down in the dirt, and one by one, the accusers walk away. One by one, they have to get off their high horse, acknowledge their own brokenness, and back down. Now it's just her and Jesus. This woman whose darkest secrets are exposed before the only man there who could have thrown a stone. I want you to notice, this is the first time Jesus actually acknowledges she's there. Jesus doesn't bring attention to this woman until there is no one left to shame her. He looks at her and asks, "Where are they? Has no one condemned you?" And she answers, "No one." And hear what Jesus says to her. "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." He doesn't shame her. He doesn't lecture her. He frees her from her accusers and tells her he wants her to be free from her sin too. And what I've found from looking at the life of Jesus and in my own relationship with him is that Jesus is actually the safest person I can bring my sin and shame to. He's the only one who I can be absolutely confident that no matter how bad I think my sin is, he will receive me, he will love me, and he'll set me free. And maybe you're carrying some shame today. Maybe you're holding on to some secret thing that you're convinced that if anyone knew, they would reject you and throw you away. I just want to invite you to look at what Jesus is like in the Bible. See what he's like. The story we read today is from the Gospel of John. It's a biography of Jesus. What if you can go to Jesus and find someone who knows you fully, best of the best, worst of the worst, and yet loves you fully and wants to set you free?